Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Gray, and I'm the Senior Director of Stakeholder Engagement and Strategic Communications at the American Association of People with Disabilities. And on behalf of the National Disability Leadership Alliance, Verizon, and Getty Images, I am excited to welcome you to Behind the Lens, documenting disability through crisis. So before we get started, I want to go over a couple of access reminders. So one, closed caption is available. You should be able to click on the closed caption CC button to turn them on if you're interested in adjusting the size of the caption. You can do that by clicking on the video setting and then navigating to the accessibility tab. ASL is also available on the screen throughout the entire conversation. If you have any questions throughout the event, don't hesitate to submit your questions in the chat box. And then finally, we recommend for the best viewing experience to view this conversation via full screen. So this event was originally scheduled for a few weeks ago, but as y'all know, 2020 is a year full of unprecedented circumstances. COVID-19 has shown us the significance of prioritizing emergency preparedness and public safety. Across the globe, we have witnessed the gruesome and fatal impacts of this pandemic. Specifically in the US, we've witnessed people with disabilities struggle through the shutting down of essential services. Over 63 million people on Medicaid be impacted through benefits such as the reliability and safety of caregivers. And we have to mention the overly disproportionate ways that COVID-19 is impacting Black communities and particularly Black disabled people. Our country is currently in an uprising to address issues of state violence and to declare that Black lives matter. So now more than ever, it is critical that we have adequate representation of the disability community and those of the community that intersect with race, gender, LGBTQ rights, and so much more. So today, we are going to be taking a look at Behind the Lens, introducing you to the work of 5 emerging photographers who are documenting the lives and experiences of people with disabilities. Their work takes on new dimensions as people with disabilities are uniquely vulnerable during disasters such as what's been happening with COVID-19. We'll explore the impact of this has on our community and share in the thoughtful discussion about the importance of inclusive content and media. This is not a new topic for us at AAPD. As a convener, connector, and catalyst for change, we understand the role that media plays in increasing the political and economic power of people with disabilities. At AAPD, we are proud to partner with Verizon and Getty Images even long before COVID-19. We've been partnering with them for the past 2 years to increase authentic representation of disability in the media through the Disability Collection. If you haven't checked out the collection, I highly recommend that you do so. So as we kick off this event, first we are going to show a quick video that will give you a look at the work we've been doing over the past 2 years. And then immediately after the video, you will hear from Claudia Marks and Lawrence Carter-Long, who will introduce you to the winners for today. Thanks again, everyone.
Media is a global media and tech company with over 1 billion users. Every year, we use over 700,000 stock photos, but had a hard time finding authentic photos of people with disabilities. People with disabilities make up about 20% of the population, but only 2% of the media.
What you're frequently seeing is this idea of disabled as lesser, disabled as something that needs to be fixed. I don't need to be fixed from what I am. I just want to be included.
Verizon Media partnered with the global leader in stock imagery, Getty Images, and 17 leading disability advocacy groups to revolutionize how disability is represented in stock images.
Okay, let's go.
Introducing the Disability Collection. We asked the disability community how they wanted to be represented and made guidelines for stock photos that go beyond stereotypes.
The faces you see in your day-to-day life ultimately define your perspective on what's normal.
We announced the Disability Collection on Global Accessibility Awareness Day in 2018, garnering an organic reach of over 18.5 million. And over 200,000 photographers worldwide got the call to action to grow the collection. 1 year later, thousands of photos have been submitted. and over 5,000 businesses have already downloaded the images. The Disability Collection is empowering media and advertisers to authentically reflect.
We can do anything, and it requires the media to help get that message out.
Learn more at thedisabilitycollection.com.
Thank you, Carrie. It's so nice to be here with you, Lawrence, and the Verizon team. I am Claudia Grimaldi-Marx, and I'm Senior Art Director in the Creative Content Department at Getty Images. On this page, you will see, clockwise from top left, a Muslim mom laughing with her son with Down syndrome, outdoors. A young girl with 2 prosthetic legs climbs up a jungle gym at a public park wearing a striped dress. A Black woman sits in an office at her desk working near a window. She is partially blind. A young autistic boy in the water at a sunny beach, looking down intently at his arms and hands out as if he's cupping the water and feeling it on his skin. A meeting in an office conference room with 4 coworkers, and the woman in the center who is speaking has a prosthetic leg. Last year, to build on this partnership, we chose to focus the fall 2019 edition of our Creative Bursary on supporting creators whose lives were deeply connected to the disability community and succeeded in illuminating their experiences. At Getty Images, we know that who is behind the lens influences what is captured in front of it. We care deeply about the diversity and inclusivity of both our imagery and our contributors, and we seek to support emerging creators who show us their lived experiences. On this next slide, left to right, a para-athlete tethered to her guide prepare for the ocean swimming portion of a triathlon. A young woman with Down syndrome in an office speaks into a headset at a desk. A man in a green wheelchair poses on a basketball court. In conjunction with Verizon Media and with funding from Verizon, our first ever bursary partner, we awarded $40,000 in total, shared by 5 recipients, which we'll see in a moment. Dedicated to elevating the work of still photographers using their talents to create inclusive visual stories, this grant was open to all photographers who have been shooting for less than 5 years. I'd like to also give a shout out to our wonderful judges who helped select these winners. Suleiman Khan, founder of Disability UK, Aaron Lefebvre, a photographer, teacher, and a 2018 Getty Images Creative Bursary winner, Kohei Hara, a Getty Images contributing photographer from Japan, and last but not least, Lawrence Carter Long, who is with us today. Lawrence, what did you enjoy most about the range of applicants we had for this bursary?
Perhaps what struck me most when we were doing the judging and as we're reflecting on the applicants and their work again now is the depth and breadth of the work, the wide diversity across categories and identities of the talent pool that we were blessed to choose from. This is across the spectrum, encompassing, embracing, and highlighting geographic diversity, ethnic diversity, gender diversity, sexuality, different types of disabilities, and not just the obvious ones, and even class and economic differences, all presenting quality work. It made our jobs as judges harder in the best possible ways.
Definitely. On to our winner. Our first of third place winners is Jaclyn Foss for her project Beneath the Skin. This is an image of Jaclyn, who is based in Baltimore, Maryland, standing against the sunset, wearing a white shirt and a straw hat and holding her camera, looking directly at us. The visuals she created for her project Beneath the Skin are intrinsically supported by the people she photographs and the environments they are in. She is drawn to the ephemerality in nature and wilderness. Jaclyn says, visual aids are like watching the sun dip below the horizon and rise high into the sky, show the transitory nature and importance of time. This is why the tactility of film holds sentimental and inspirational value for me. Having this physical archive reminds me of how precious and fleeting time is, along with the importance we make in our everyday encounters with people and the landscape. On the next slide, you see from left to right, a portrait of a woman named Dayon sitting on the bed in front of a sunny window looking directly into the camera. Next to that is a white page with a smaller photo of a shelf with various bottles and boxes of medicine for her MS and a paragraph describing Dayon's symptoms. Jaclyn states, just because someone has physical ailments, there's still a need for love, family, and support. By being a part of this opportunity, I am able to travel and take photographs of participants who want to share their stories of dealing with an illness. It is not always apparent what someone is going through internally. There's strength in numbers, and I'm thankful that I've been selected for this opportunity. On the next slide, Jaclyn's personal story of chronic illness will be documented on silver gelatin prints in a new project called Invisible Illness. Here we see two images from that series, both black and white. Left is a close-up of Jaclyn's neck with a thin white string wound around and pulled tight. Some of her hair is caught in the string. The right shows a nude female body squatting down in the woods, hugging a large white orb. This photographic series will express what it is like to live with chronic ailments through the use of self-portrait therapy. As Jaclyn explains, chronic pain does not look different from healthy people around us. She says it can be difficult to explain to others how sick you really feel. Regardless of whether you can see someone's illness, it is important to recognize the validity of these struggles. Lawrence, what did you think about this project and where Jaclyn has been forced to go with it now due to her illness and distancing?
Jaclyn said it herself. Chronic pain does not look different from healthy people around us. There's the rub. I think because the experience of invisible illness isn't always immediately obvious, there's been a tendency historically for medical professionals and even at the public at large to doubt and discount what people are living through. That's real. And the ways that artists translate that, illustrate that, specifically the way Jaclyn communicates that experience through tone and timbre, light and shadow, frame and focus, is one of the reasons this project and her work has earned the recognition that it's getting right now. Solitude and isolation are different ways of experiencing the same thing. And more often than not, it's those nuances that communicate the shades in between that can make all the difference. Something that gains an even greater resonance, I think, in these days, weeks and months of social distancing. Art goes on just as life goes on, and art, when we let it, can infuse life with necessary vital oxygen, which is what Jaclyn's work does.
Absolutely. Next up is Isabel Alexander for her series Metronome. On this page is a photo of Isabel standing in front of a bright blue wall wearing a yellow shirt with white polka dots and smiling. Having a brother with autism is what undoubtedly sparked her interest in studying clinical psychology, holistic medicine, and education reform. But it also changed her vision. She says she's still the witness she was at age 8, someone who observes a situation and feels it deeply. But she's also a storyteller, someone who believes that the human experience in all its rawness and complexity can be just as dynamic in snapshot form. On the next slide, we see Isabel and her brother interacting. On the left, Isabel has her eyes closed and is reaching her hand up to her face, and her brother is on the right of the frame in a white t-shirt, also reaching towards her. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, Isabel hasn't been able to be as present mentally and physically for her project as she'd like to be. She said, although I do visit home occasionally, my brother's anxiety has skyrocketed as a result of the quarantine, and I'm still brainstorming ways to document his condition authentically and respectfully, while also following or potentially leveraging the unique circumstances of the pandemic. On the next slide, we see Isabel in bed with her mother, embracing in the corner of a room with delicately flowered wallpaper and a pale blue and lavender bedding. On the right, a portrait of Isabel and her brother, both looking at the camera, standing in front of a bookshelf. Isabel said, I'm honored to receive a grant that celebrates inclusive and authentic representation. In our well-intentioned quest to expand photography of those with disabilities, we often overlook another group in the periphery, the caretakers. Lawrence, I'm curious what you think. Isabel faces a real obstacle here with her project. Do you think she can find a way through to document how the pandemic is affecting her family dynamic and her brother's state of mind?
What you're asking and what Isabel is finding ways to do, I think, goes right to the heart of the artistic challenge, of the artist's challenge, doesn't it? It's finding ways, creative ways, to make the ineffable, the invisible, visceral and visible, to translate the lived experience of her brother to the world at large, a position that Isabel is uniquely poised to do. And in order to achieve that goal, the work must be a collaboration between the subject and the artist. This sometimes blurs lines. Each bring a unique collection of skills, insight, experiences to the project, which ultimately enhance the final product in unforeseen and unimaginable ways. Ideally, what you get, and I think what we're seeing with Isabel's work, is something that neither the artist nor the subject could have or would have been able to come up with on their own. Her work achieves a synthesis of what is only possible through true, honest, and deep collaboration. And I think it reminds us, especially in these times, that it's always an ongoing work in progress, a never really ending experience.
Right. Next up is our third place winner, Adetona Omokanye. Adetona was awarded this third place for his project Beyond 4 feet 10 inches. A portrait on this page is of Adetona wearing glasses and a purple shirt in front of a tan wall. Adetona writes, "My heart is filled with gratitude for an organization like Getty Images, Verizon Media, and iStock to appreciate my work and the humanistic value I try to infuse in my project. This grant gave me guts and the breeze of hope that the world did not turn its back to the little people of my country and the world at large." On the next slide, on the left, two people stand in an empty outdoor sports arena facing each other, standing closely, each touching their own face with a finger and smiling. And on the right, a man sits on a sofa at home towards the edge, looking off frame towards the light. The gray-green sofa is placed in front of a kitchen table and pale green curtains and a dark green wall. Adetona says, "I'm enabled by this grant to keep advocating, researching, and learning more about my project and the subjects. This project really touched me. It was surprising we didn't see a similar project from anyone else. Adetona's subjects really have a unique sense of joy and confidence." What did you think about this project, Lawrence?
Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's same here. I'll let folks in on something that I think this work really illustrates. A secret that disability communities have long prided ourselves on, something the rest of the world is finally getting hip to. There's real joy, purpose, and meaning in community. That's the same for disability communities too, and I think all communities. We draw strength from it. It's something that buoys and supports us in difficult times, not unlike the situations we're facing now. You know, once upon a time, disability was just a diagnosis, but through time, its meaning has evolved to embrace larger, more universal core concepts like community and culture, constituency, a shared history, even identity. And by any definition, that's progress. Anybody who still thinks of disability as just a diagnosis is also signaling to the rest of the world that you're a little bit behind the times. I think this work that you just shown is a powerful, very vibrant illustration of that evolution in progress and in action.
Right. On the next slide, on the left, we see a silhouette of a man seen through an orange cloth hanging in a doorway. And on the right, a man sits at a workbench looking up at the camera wearing a blue plaid shirt. Adetona said that he had intended to continue shooting right before lockdown happened. Now that Lagos is partially open, he tells me he's been getting right back to working on this project. And our second place, on the next slide, second place winner, Sneziana von Böttrich for Sophie at Work, is an ongoing project. The photo here is a headshot of Sneziana with a dark buttoned up shirt looking right at the camera against a black background. Sneziana is from Perm, Russia, and lives as an independent photographer in Cologne, Germany. She studied journalism at the University of Cologne, and she focuses her work on portrait photography and social reportage. On the next slide, with this project, Sneziana says she will accompany Sophie, a now over 20-year-old German woman with Down syndrome that she has been photographing since she was a teenager, in her daily work as a helper on a holiday estate for the disabled. The focus of this project will be on the collaborative work of disabled and non-disabled people. She firmly believes that inclusion breaks down barriers. Here we see on the left, we're looking over Sophie's shoulder as she sits at a tiled counter, looking at a cell phone conversation that is mostly heart emoji. She has dark black writing on the back of her left hand. On the right, Sophie and a friend are laying in a field of bright red poppies in full bloom while looking up at the sky and embracing. On the next slide, most recently, says Sneziana has been with Sophie to continue to document her life. Sophie now works on the farm where teens with disabilities like her visit for the summer. Sneziana intends this project to make a point of new aspects about inclusion and the everyday work of disabled people. On the left, Sophie is on her knees outside on the grass near a barn, face to face with a gentle brown and white pony. She's wearing red pants and a brown sweater and a scarf on her head. And on the right, Sophie stands facing the camera while her mother's white hair can be seen behind her head. She's wearing a light brown sweater and laughing joyfully while standing against a field of tall green grass and blue skies. Lawrence, what did you think about the evolution of this project?
There are two things that really rise to the top for me among all that we could celebrate and appreciate connected to this project, including the bursaries. And they both have a lot to do with what we were saying before about community and about collaboration. First was the coming together of diverse identities, backgrounds, and perspectives, whether that was from within the disability communities who helped participate and really inform the development of the project from the beginning. That remains sadly unique. I also think in equal measure, it speaks to the magic that can occur, and I think that has, when professional organizations like Getty and Verizon Media collaborate meaningfully with disability community members and other communities in ways that are honest about acknowledging that there's much that we don't yet know, but we're eager to learn. That makes a huge difference right there. Just as important, I think the bursaries themselves demonstrate a necessary commitment beyond the usual show and tell approach to disability. You know, that where folks will have a panel or host an event once or twice a year, but nothing really changes. The significant difference here is that the sponsors, the partners, and the collaborators put real money behind the project in meaningful ways that supports emerging artists. Member organizations within the National Disability Leadership Alliance, as Carrie spoke about before, and the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund's Disability and Media Alliance Project, we welcome and appreciate that very tangible, very real commitment. Both the field and the world at large could use more of it.
Great, thank you, Lawrence. And finally, our first place winner, Nolan Ryan Trow, for his project Adopted Family. The photo on this page is a headshot of Nolan, who's wearing round glasses and a beard. He's standing in front of a white wall. His work stood out to us as the clear winner with his moving and intimate look at navigating life in an urban environment from the point of view of his own lived experience. You will get a behind-the-lens look into Nolan's artistic vision, his work, and how he's continuing with his craft during this time of crisis. And with that, I pass it over to Zach Bastian, Manager of Strategic Alliances and Public Policy for Verizon, and Nolan Ryan Trow, photographer and first place bursary winner.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you to the Verizon team, the Verizon Media team, Getty Images, Lawrence, Carrie, Claudia, everyone who's made this happen. This has been a true labor of love, and I'm so thrilled to host this conversation with Nolan to get you guys a deeper look into his work and the ways that so many creative people are authentically depicting their lives that they live. So in this first picture that we're looking at, Adeyambo and Nolan take pictures of each other, and both of their faces appear in the same frame. Nolan looks into the camera. He has light skin, dark eyes, brown hair, and a beard. Adeyambo looks out a window with the curtains open, the light illuminating his face. He has dark skin, hair pulled back, and a beard. So Nolan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So I think this picture is a great way for our audience to get to know you a little better. Tell me about it and tell me about Adeyambo.
Yeah, so this picture is actually a double exposure, and it was taken in Adeyambo's apartment in Harlem, and we were passing my camera back and forth, taking pictures of each other, and I used like this old film camera. So the reason why it looks like a double exposure is there was an issue with the film advancing. And so we actually ended up on the same frame, and it was kind of like this happy mistake. I saw it post-process, and I thought it was kind of prophetic in a way. And
how did you meet Adeyambo in the first place?
I actually met Adeyambo at a wheelchair football game one time, and we were playing against each other. And after the game, we just ended up talking, and we were telling each other about our lives and what we were doing. And he was telling me that he was going to school for biomechanical engineering. he's a bilateral amputee, and his goal was to create an affordable prosthetic for people in the disabled community. And I thought that was really cool, and we just had a good chemistry together. And so, yeah, we just started hanging out a lot. And, he was also he's a strong father. I realized he was a leader in the community. He had a podcast for disabled people, by disabled people. So, yeah, we just started hanging out after that.
So we're going to have more to talk about this community that you joined within New York City. But first, can you tell us where you're joining us from today?
Yeah, sure. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland right now. It's where I live with my wife. We were in Pennsylvania for the last couple of months about some concerns I had with COVID and my health, being that I'm immunocompromised. And so after being without access to my physical therapy for many months, I got a call from my doctor saying, we're back open. And so when that happened, we decided to come back to Baltimore so I could continue my pelvic floor PT, because it's something that I can't really do alone, and that I need my physical therapist to help me with.
So I have some more questions, and we have some photos that directly touch on the COVID crisis. But to start at the beginning, tell us how you got started taking photos.
Yeah, so, when I was a kid, I was growing up in California, and I was always really obsessed with film and photography. And I always really wanted this DSLR camera, like this fancy camera. And I would always ask my mom, like every birthday or Christmas, to get me one, but she couldn't afford it. So when I was like 14, she got me this little point and shoot camera, and it fit in my pocket, and I just took it everywhere. I would just take pictures of everything, like me, my friends, nature, like everything. So that's kind of like where I started taking pictures. It's kind of like almost anyone else. Yeah.
And how did you acquire the spinal injury?
So yeah, I had a spinal cord injury at L1, and it was during a cliff diving accident when I was in Northern California.
But at that point, you still decided that you wanted to make the move to the East Coast to attend NYU, correct?
Right, yeah, because I had my injury, and I wasn't able to be independent for a long time. I had to relearn how to live, and but I still wanted to apply to graduate school. And so basically a year after my injury, I was accepted into a graduate program. Basically, it was for sociology at New York University. And so basically on my 1-year anniversary of my injury is when I moved to New York City.
And when did these photos start becoming more serious? Because obviously the photos that appeared in the Times and different outlets weren't on the level of you just shooting with a little point and shoot.
Yeah, so when I got accepted into NYU, my major was multidisciplinary. So I had the option to take some courses outside of my college. And I figured I might as well try to take a photography course. And I sort of had to beg my way to get into the class, but I was accepted into this photojournalism course, which was taught by a guy named Jeffrey Scales, who's been a photo editor at the New York Times, and he's a really amazing photographer. And he became a really good friend of mine too. And when I was in his class, it was just very rigorous. He basically had us doing assignments every week and filing pictures and metadata and just all this stuff I had no idea about. And so the first thing I did was I took my student loan money and I ran out and bought this expensive camera for the class, like any responsible student would do. So yeah, that class really got me interested in documentary or photojournalism or whatever you want to call it.
So let's dive into that period of your work. So in this next photo, we see Alex wearing a gray jacket, black pants, and a black knit cap, lowering himself in his wheelchair backwards down a staircase while gripping the handrail. A man wearing a backwards hat, a matching jacket and jeans, a white t-shirt, and basketball sneakers watches, as do two men standing at the bottom of the stairs. So this was the first photo of yours that I saw. It's a very arresting way to encounter your work. This is an iconic stairwell for anyone who's been in the New York City subway before. Please tell us about Alex and how you met him.
Yeah, so this, my friend Alex, actually, he was my first friend that I met in New York City. For that class I told you about at NYU, the photojournalism course, we had a midterm assignment where we could photograph like whatever we wanted. And I saw that there was a wheelchair basketball tournament in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And it was something I wanted to photograph because since I had moved from California, I hadn't really been involved with the disabled community. And it was something I was really missing because when I lived in California, I had a lot of friends in the disabled community, and I felt a lot of camaraderie there. And so I wanted to photograph this wheelchair basketball tournament. And that's actually where I met Alex. And he actually is like the first person who really opened my eyes to New York City. He had a Braun Ability van, and we would like travel all over the city, and he grew up there, and he knew all of the local spots and people, and just, he, like I said, he was pretty much my first friend, and he really opened my eyes up to the city. And he was always someone who just never let his disability slow him down. As you could see in the photo, him going backwards down the stairs was something he did regularly. And it didn't even really occur to me to take a picture of it until maybe like the 30th time I saw him do it. And I think that's largely because I was in this photojournalism course, and I started to realize I could use my camera as a tool for social change. And I thought that it was a photo that really highlighted the inaccessibility of the New York City subway.
Well, it's fantastic work. So in this next picture, we see your friend Donahue and Jasmine celebrate the coming arrival of their baby. Donahue wears a ball cap, a white short sleeve shirt with African patterns at the sleeves and collar, and jeans while sitting in his wheelchair. Jasmine sits in his lap. Her hair is wrapped in coiled braids, and she wears a crown, African print pants, and a top that leaves her pregnant belly exposed. Streamers hang from the ceiling, and cupcakes sit on a table behind the couple. So a common theme of your work, and one that really pops out in this photo, is family and community. Why do you want to document these kinds of intimate moments, and frankly, ones that require a lot of trust in you as the photographer?
I mean, I want to document these moments just how I would document like these moments for anyone who is able-bodied or disabled. And I just feel like when you see how people with disabilities have been historically portrayed in mass media or just in general in the country, like you don't usually see them in these types of scenarios for whatever reason. And, me spending time with Donahue and Jasmine and all my friends just getting close, it's impossible to hang out with anyone, whether or not they have a disability, and not witness like these kind of intimate moments. And for me, it's just something like those moments are what I'm drawn to as a photographer. Like one of my mentors, his name's Ashley Gilbertson, and he was probably the first person who really was a real mentor to me. And something he told me about my work was that he said, you have a really empathetic eye. And I didn't really know what that means, but he was like, you're always sort of subconsciously looking for these moments. And I think it's important for people with disabilities to be seen as parents, as brothers, sisters, family, active family members in the community, because it just shows that, family is something that's universal, whether you have a disability or not. And I think those universal ideas of humanity are kind of what I'm aiming to portray with people with disabilities, because the more people can relate to people they see in pictures, the less they're going to feel moved or disconnected from that person's lived experience. And I just want my photos to mostly just connect people.
Well, that insight by Ash Gilbertson about the empathy in your photos, I think, is 100% correct, because it's very hard to be honest taking pictures like these and also be so kind in the way that you show these individuals. So it's really beautiful work. So in this next picture, we're starting to dive into some of the coronavirus-related content that we hinted at earlier. So in this picture, many people in wheelchairs gather in a circle to remember a friend who recently died. A microphone is passed around so all can share thoughts and memories, many visibly carrying the loss with their body language. An opening at the front of the photo leads to an empty space at the center of its circle. So this event was going to be in person. We're doing it virtually today because of the pandemic. Please tell us more about this picture and how it's related to this situation.
Yeah, this photo was taken like the first week of March, and it was right before the pandemic really hit America super hard, and New York became the epicenter of the virus in America. And it was pretty much the last time it was the last time I was there with my friends, and this was like the last big gathering that we all had. Our friend Kim had passed away from a seizure as a result of her disability, and there was this gathering in Harlem, and I was kind of on the fence of if I should go or not, because I was starting to get a little bit worried about the virus. And I just really love this photo because it takes a lot of maneuvering and time to get like 50 to 60 people in wheelchairs like all in the circle, and just like all the love in the room. And even though like I wasn't like particularly really close with Kim, like a lot of my friends were, and so to be there with them and to be like their support for them going through what they were going through, and it was impossible not to feel that myself. And I really wanted to take this photo to just show people, like, I think it's another way of universal connectivity, if not the most universal connectivity, which is death. And it's something like we all have to face with our friends and our family and our communities. And, I've shown this photo to other people before, and they were like, oh my God, like I didn't know people in wheelchairs like gathered like this. Like, that's so cool. And to me, like, that is strange. Like, why wouldn't people in wheelchairs or with disabilities gather like that, like anyone else would?
Right, right. And something that has really stuck with me in my time being so privileged to work in this space is just how disability is nothing more than a natural part of life, that it's our society and the way that we choose to deal with it that makes it an extraordinary thing, because we're all at some point going to lose capacity. We're born with certain things and then they're gradually taken away. So this is really just part of the natural condition of life. And can you tell us a little more about how you, as a person with a disability, is affected by something like COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, just as a anecdote, when everything did really kind of hit the fan, people were going out and buying hand sanitizer and stocking up on toilet paper and all this kind of menial stuff. And for me, the first thing I really thought about was my medications and my catheters and all of the things that I need, like physical therapy and doctor's appointments so that I can live my life healthily, and my psychologist appointments. And I didn't know if, when this first happened, I had no idea if pharmacies were going to remain open. I had no idea if my catheters were going to be shipped across state lines, how I was going to see my therapist, if that was even going to be possible. And in that moment, I pretty much had this panic attack, and I had anxiety growing up, and I still live with it, but at this moment, it was like the most severe one I've had in years. And it was, we had touched on this in the opening, just about disability and disaster preparedness or emergency preparedness. And for me, like when all of this happened, it just really, for me, highlighted how vulnerable I was if something was to just happen all of a sudden. And yeah, just because, there are just a lot of reasons I could go into, and, insurance and, the way all of that works and stuff too, with getting enough medications to last through a period of time. But yeah, for me, it caused a lot of stress for me.
So given that so many of these photos are really community oriented, based on you physically being there, having a presence within this community and establishing that trust and intimacy, what changes have you made to your photographic practice? Because I know that your original idea with the Disability Collection Creative Bursary was that you were going to continue shooting photos in this vein. But since that's not possible right now, what are you shooting?
So since I've been pretty much, for the most part, quarantined, unless I really have to go out to my physical therapy appointments, I've really turned my camera inwards, because when all this happened, I'm in a fellowship called the Magnum Photography and Social Justice Fellowship, and the proposal I submitted for that is very similar to the proposal that I won for this grant. It was like a continuation of it. And I just realized at that moment I had to shift my practice, because there was no way I was going to be able to continue my work up in Harlem with my friends. And so I realized I still wanted to tell stories about disability. And I realized that I had to look no further than my own life. And sometimes that's just how it is. Like you're looking all around to try to tell a story or for something, and you realize it's kind of in front of you like the whole time. And so I had never really continued to like think about doing a self-portrait project or looking inward. But since this happened, it kind of gave me the courage to say, okay, like now I need to highlight the things going on in my life so that more people can understand what people with disabilities are going through.
We're really excited to see those photos. So in this next one, we see Tia and Azalea, daughter and mother, pose for a portrait. Tia sits on Azalea, and Azalea sits in her motorized wheelchair. Tia wears a pink shirt, blue jeans, braids with pink beads, and purses her lips. Azalea smiles, wearing brown hair past her shoulders, glasses, a blue top, and black pants. Above them are small shelves decorated with glasses and flowers. So you previously mentioned about how a lot of your photographs involve trying to show how ordinary lives with disabilities really can be, defeating that kind of false binary of pathos or inspiration that a lot of these kinds of pictures can get boxed into. Tell us about Tia and Azalea and how this fits into that work.
Yeah, so like I said before, my work on the outside is about disability, but something I think that I really try to get at in my work is, yeah, the things that are underneath that. Because when I look at this picture, like the first thing that doesn't come to my head is, oh, this is like a disabled woman. The first thing that comes to my head, and hopefully to some of yours too, is that you just see a mother with her child. And so those are the themes that I'm really trying to get across. And you know, like when I met Azalea, you know, she's the CEO of a nonprofit that helps people with disabilities called Limitless Free and United. And we were talking a lot when I first met her, and something that she's really passionate about is helping other parents who have disabilities, or helping parents who have children with disabilities. And so it's a form of empowerment, and saying, yeah, like, you know, I may have cerebral palsy in her case, but I'm still fit to be a mother, because, you know, the stuff that she went through when she was pregnant is just really terrible. Like she had friends, family, doctors, strangers on the street just come up to her without her even wanting their opinion, to be frank, and tell her that, you know, it was wrong, and she shouldn't be having a child because of her disability, and it was irresponsible of her, and, you know, basically that she wasn't fit to be a parent. And, you know, I think this photo shows you that is false, and that she is a great mother, and she is a caring mother, and she's there for her child. And obviously there's a strong bond and connection between the two of them. And, you know, people with disabilities in a lot of ways are always kind of seen on this spectrum of either being a source of pity or a source of inspiration. And it's very rare, maybe not very rare, but, you know, it's rare that I see people with disabilities just being depicted in a normal light, just being normalized and saying, oh yeah, like, you know, this is a person who happens to have a disability, versus like always focusing on the fact that that person is disabled. Like it shouldn't, like the fact that they're disabled should come after the fact that, you know, this is also just their life and this is who they are as people. So, you know, for me, as someone who also is planning to be a father soon, it's a huge sense of encouragement for me, because sometimes I worry, like with my disability, if I'm going to be a great dad, you know, because I have a really hard time getting around and balancing and all these things. And sometimes I worry if something emergency happened and it was just me and my child, if, you know, I would be able to answer the call like quickly. But when I look at this photo, like it makes me realize like I can be a great parent too, and I shouldn't be worried about my disability.
Well, Nolan, I just have to thank you again for what's been such a beautiful and incredible body of work and sharing it with us today. So we're going to look at one more picture before we kick to Q&A. Tia lies on a tile floor on her stomach, propped up on her elbows, taking a picture of her favorite toy, a black Barbie in a wheelchair, still sealed in the box. Tia wears braids with pink beads, a pink shirt, and a smile. I love this photo, and I feel like it encompasses so many of the themes that we've discussed today. Please tell us about Tia in this picture.
Yeah, so this is Tia, and she's taking a photo of, you know, what she refers to as like her favorite toy, and you know, she cares about it so much that she hasn't even taken it out of a box. And you know, we were all kids at one point, and you know, to love something that much and to have the willpower to not take it out of this box could tell you know how much that this means to her. And so the camera that she's using to photograph this doll is actually a camera that I was able to purchase from my friends with the help of the Disability Collection Bursary. And I bought like a few cameras and gave them to various friends of mine, and they have them right now actually. And they've been, you know, taking pictures of their lives in quarantine and giving it to their children to take photos of, you know, their reality. And you know, I think for me, I really love this photo because, you know, it's not often that like Tia gets to see someone like her mother represented in something like as mainstream and as pop culture as a Barbie. And I think that that's really important, that not just people with disabilities see themselves represented in these situations, but that people who are related to people with disabilities also get to see people represented in that manner. I mean, it's really important for, you know, your confidence and your sense of identity and your position in society, because if you never see yourself represented in society, it's really hard to feel like you are an equal part of it, you belong to it. So, you know, I'm really glad that, you know, Tia gets to see someone like her mother represented in that space, and that she gets to photograph it however she wants to.
So what has winning the Creative Bursary meant for you personally?
I mean, just to put it bluntly, it's like I don't have to really think about like what anyone else wants me or my friends to do. When I got more into the photojournalism community, you realize like a lot of news organizations only want to publish something that has some sort of hook, some sort of like nut that they can put it onto. That's something that's happening in the world right at that moment. So something I was like really struggling with was, okay, like I have this story, but there's nothing like really newsworthy about it, or some hook or some nut. And, you know, it was really frustrating to try to always feel like I had to fit that into my pitch somehow, or fit that into a story somehow that I felt like was timeless and that should be given the time of day regardless if there was some hook to put it to. So winning this grant for me is just like one word would be liberation, because now I don't have to think about that. I could say, yeah, like I want to give cameras to my friends, and, you know, we can take pictures of each other, or, you know, you could take a picture and make a print and write on it if you want, or throw it away, or whatever you want to do with it. Like, you know, having the agency to tell the story the way we want to tell it, and being able to openly collaborate with them and not worry about like what anyone else thinks about it is, I mean, I feel like it's what every artist wants, you know. You want to have free reign to just explore and figure it out. Yeah.
Absolutely. So before we kick to question and answer, I know that you have a book that you've been working on with a publisher. Can you tell us a little more about it? And we're going to put a link in the after event email. So if anyone wants to support this project that Nolan's working on, there's a GoFundMe link that you can go to.
Yeah, so I'm working on this book with a publisher called Photo Evidence Press. and they publish books around like social issues. And so, you know, I'm working with the publisher on getting a book together of all the work that I've been doing and recently me and my friends have been doing. So it's a culmination of my past work and this work all the way up until COVID happened, and, you know, even beyond that when we're able to continue it. And I want to include not just my photos, but the photos that they've been taking in isolation, the photos they're taking of themselves and their families. So it's going to be like this huge collaboration, and I'm really excited about it. You know, I've been pushing it back like further and farther. Like they wanted to publish it almost 2 years ago and said it wasn't ready, and then they wanted to publish it last year and I said it wasn't ready. But I feel like it's getting to the point where, you know, I'm ready to disseminate it and put it out there and make it as accessible as possible. Having, you know, the book in its physical version, you know, I want to figure out how to make it accessible to put Braille captions or something like that, and to also have like an online version that people can access if, you know, they're visually impaired or whatever. Like that's my whole goal with the book project, is to make it as accessible as possible and as many people can access it as they want to. And, you know, something I'm also thinking about incorporating is some of the self-portraits I've been doing with the Magnum Foundation. And so it's just going to be like this whole kind of amalgamation of all the work that I've been doing over like the last 3.5 years.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Nolan, again. You're such a generous and kind soul, and we're so grateful for your work and for your generosity in sharing it with us. We have a little time left for some questions and answers, and we've seen a lot of good ones in the chat, so thanks so much, everybody, for contributing. This first question is from Suleiman from Disability Limited, and it's for you, Nolan. How do you stay creative and look after yourself in these strange times? How can disabled people stay creative without buying into ableist narratives?
That's a good question. I think just staying creative is a matter of just being nice to yourself and not feeling pressured like you have to create something, or, you know, like if some weeks go by and you're just like, you know, I don't want to even look at my camera, I don't want to write or whatever, like it's okay. I think something that I've been doing is just letting things kind of come naturally to me. Like if I happen to wake up one morning and I have this idea for like this portrait I want to take, I'm like, all right, like I'm gonna just do that. And sometimes I don't even know why I have the thought, I just want to do it. But yeah, just letting it happen naturally. And I think like as far as like the ableist narrative, it's like, just don't let anyone tell you what to do. Like if you want to like do some weird, crazy experimental portraiture that you don't think anyone's going to get, but it makes sense to you, like just do it. I mean, I don't know, like that would be my biggest thing is, you know, I would say the one really great thing about solitude is when you really do unplug, it's really kind of this gold mine for creativity, because you're not getting like outside influences from anywhere. It's all coming from you. And I think like that's, as terrible as all this has been, in some ways, the isolation is a kind of gift. And if you can like be patient with it and just let it come to you and harness it, like the sky is kind of the limit with that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great answer. So this next question is for Carrie, and it's from Trampus from Independence Incorporated. What areas have you seen the greatest social advancements for you as an individual with a disability?
Yeah, you know, I would say there's two areas that I've been seeing more and more progress in. One is around just naming disability in general. So it's not uncommon for people that have disabilities to go across this long journey of, you know, is this something I'm even going to acknowledge, right? Like I'll talk about being a Black woman all day, every day. But when it comes to my disability, it can be a bit different to acknowledge it. And it's just another layer of stigma and discrimination and all these other things. And I think through that journey, not only did I personally have to get to the point where I name it, I own it, it is what it is, but I see a culture of body positivity and mind positivity around disability that is catching fire on a societal level, even in the workplace. So we still have a long ways to go, but I think it's very exciting to see people who are just claiming their narrative around disability and going with it.
Great answer. Great answer. Well, with that, I think that's all the time we have for question and answers. We're so happy that you could all join us today. And now back to Claudia for a couple closing remarks. Oh, or were you not supposed to do that?
I didn't know I was doing closing remarks. Sorry.
I may have just decided that on the fly.
Oh, thanks. Is someone going to do them? Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. And thanks for this. And I love the bursary, and I really appreciate all of this event.
Thanks a lot, guys.